It was a moment that silenced stadiums and shook television screens across the globe. With just 4 words, "It's time to say goodbye," Venus Williams drew the curtain on a career that had spanned more than 2 decades. It wasn't simply a retirement announcement. It was a seismic shockwave that reverberated through every corner of the sporting world. For those who grew up watching her dominate the pristine lawns of Wimbledon, this was not just the end of a chapter. It felt like losing a member of the family. And perhaps nowhere outside of America did her farewell resonate more deeply than here in Britain, where Venus carved out some of her most defining moments, from her maiden Wimbledon triumph in 2000 to her fierce sibling duels. With Serena on center court, Venus and the All-England club share a love affair etched into tennis history. As she stood center stage, voice trembling, eyes glistening, she confessed, "I gave everything I had. I leave the court with no regrets." Those words cut through the evening air like a blade, leaving fans stunned, some weeping openly, others cheering wildly in appreciation of a true icon. But why now? Why in 2025? Why walk away when her name still commands respect, even fear, among a generation of players half her age? For the uninitiated, Venus's statistics alone are extraordinary. 7 Grand Slam singles titles, 14 in doubles alongside Serena, 5 Wimbledon crowns, 4 Olympic gold medals, 49 WTA titles. The list reads like the stuff of legend. Yet numbers, impressive as they are, cannot capture the full scale of her impact. She was not just another champion, she was a cultural trailblazer. It was Venus who marched into the corridors of Wimbledon in 2006, armed not with a racket but with conviction, demanding equal prize money for women. And it was Venus who stood tall as one of the first black women to dismantle the elitist veneer of tennis's oldest tournament. British commentators often referred to her as the warrior queen of Wimbledon, a figure who fused grace with ferocity, tradition with rebellion. She wasn't simply playing the game, she was rewriting its rules. At 44, Venus had become the oldest competitor on tour, a living relic of an era many believed had already passed. The injuries, the autoimmune battle, the relentless march of time, all had taken their toll. Yet still, every time she walked onto a court, fans dared to believe in something magical. Her goodbye was not just the conclusion of a sporting career, it was the final page of a golden era. For millions across Britain, memories come flooding back. Where were you when she lifted her first Wimbledon trophy in 2000, or when she dethroned Serena in the 2008 final in one of the most enthralling sibling battles ever witnessed on center court? To lose Venus is to lose a thread that tied tennis to a more romantic age, an age where the Williams sisters turned sport into theater, into a story greater than the sum of its parts. The tributes came in torrents. Serena, barely able to hold back tears, declared her sister had always been her anchor. "Venus is the reason I believed I could be great." Roger Federer praised her pioneering role, while Billie Jean King immortalized the moment with her words. Venus didn't just play tennis, she changed it. And here in the UK, the reaction was particularly poignant. The BBC's Evening Bulletin led with Venus's farewell, calling her a champion whose legacy transcends centre court. The Times of London dubbed her the trailblazer who bent Wimbledon to her will. Even footballers like Marcus Rashford and Harry Kane tweeted messages of admiration, recognizing that Venus's courage was not confined to the tennis arena, but resonated across sport. Within minutes, the hashtag number sign "Thank You Venus" surged to the top of global trends. Fans poured in their memories, clips of her thunderous serves, and words of gratitude that captured just how deeply she had touched lives. With Venus's departure, women's tennis enters unfamiliar territory. For 2 decades, the Williams sisters were its heartbeat, its gravitational pull. Their dominance, their charisma, their very rivalry gave women's tennis a cultural relevance it had never known before. Now that torch is passed on. Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, Naomi Osaka, all openly acknowledge Venus as their inspiration. Gauff in particular once confessed that it was watching Venus on the Wimbledon lawns that made her pick up a racket. Her fearless game, the swagger in her movement, the refusal to yield, all are echoes of Venus's influence. Yet the question lingers, can the sport ever reach those same cultural heights without the Williams dynasty? Or was that a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon? To truly grasp the magnitude of Venus's farewell, one must revisit the landmarks of her astonishing journey. Wimbledon in 2000. A 20-year-old Venus, the outsider, stormed through the draw and held aloft her first Grand Slam trophy on the lawns that would become her second home. Wimbledon 2008 final. Facing Serena in what many called the match of the century, Venus produced tennis of sublime quality, outlasting her sibling in a gripping final. Equal prize money campaign. Her 2006 campaign that forced Wimbledon to finally offer equal pay changed tennis forever. Olympic glory, 4 gold medals cemented her as one of the most decorated Olympians in tennis history. Longevity. Competing in 4 different decades, she inspired players who weren't even born when she won her first slam. Each of these moments stitched together the story of a champion who was never content to simply win. She wanted to change the very fabric of the sport. What elevates Venus beyond greatness is her humanity. She was never just the unreachable superstar. She was real. Fans watched her fight through injuries and manage her autoimmune disease with quiet dignity and confront the brutal realities of aging. In Britain, she became more than a tennis player. She became part of the sporting folklore. School children copied her serve in playgrounds, young girls admired her unapologetic strength, and older fans respected the way she carried herself with grace in both triumph and defeat. Greatness, she reminded us, is not defined by victories alone. It's about perseverance, dignity, and the courage to keep stepping into the arena, no matter the odds. So, is this truly goodbye? Venus has hinted at a new chapter rather than a complete departure. Coaching and mentoring young players is a natural progression. Imagine the next Wimbledon champion learning directly from the woman who fought for their prize money. Her business ventures, most notably her fashion line and Eleven, remain a symbol of athlete entrepreneurship. She's also a vocal advocate for wellness and equality, fields where her influence will only deepen. British sports journalists speculate she might even take on a commentary role at the BBC during Wimbledon, bringing her insights back to the very stage where she wrote history. And as history shows, legends never truly leave. Venus and Britain's enduring love affair. Few nations outside the United States embraced Venus Williams quite like Britain did. From her very first appearance at Wimbledon, there was an unspoken bond. The British public, usually reserved, saw in Venus a fighter who married elegance with defiance, qualities that mirrored the spirit of Wimbledon itself. Year after year she returned, and sometimes victorious, sometimes defeated, but always with the aura of a queen. For many Brits, Wimbledon without Venus will feel incomplete. In pubs across London and living rooms from Manchester to Cardiff, older fans reminisce about the days she and Serena transformed summer afternoons into high drama. The Williams sisters didn't just compete, they turned Wimbledon into a stage of Shakespearean proportions. As Venus walks away, one question remains: can women's tennis ever produce another figure like her? Perhaps not. Her blend of athletic dominance, cultural influence, and social activism feels singular, unrepeatable. She gave young women the courage to fight for equality. She gave black athletes the roadmap to thrive in arenas that once seemed out of reach. She gave the sporting world a masterclass in how to endure, adapt, and evolve. Her bond with Serena reshaped sibling rivalry into something epic, poetic, a rivalry that pushed them both to immortality. When the curtains fall on center court, when the grass is cut one final time this summer, Venus's shadow will still linger. For as long as Wimbledon stands, her story will echo through its halls. And so Britain bids farewell not with sadness but with gratitude. Venus Williams may no longer strike, serves that shakes the turf, but her legacy is indestructible. She leaves behind a sport richer, fairer, and more inspiring than the one she entered. As one commentator put it, icons don't retire. They live forever. As we close the book on Venus Williams' extraordinary journey, we are left with questions that reach far beyond the white lines of a tennis court. What does it truly mean to leave a sport with no regrets? Is a greatness measured by trophies alone, or by the barriers shattered and the lives inspired along the way? When the roar of the center court fades into memory, who will carry the torch she lit so brightly? Will women's tennis ever again witness a figure so fearless, so unyielding, so capable of bending history itself? And perhaps the most personal question of all, what has Venus taught you, the fan, the dreamer, the believer, about resilience, about courage, about never surrendering to circumstance?